Swadika, thank you for joining us on Newsline. We are broadcasting live on NBT, Radio Thailand FM 88, and on NBT World. It's Friday, July the 17th, and you're with me, Tra Thirakosan. And welcome to today's segment of Thailand Moves Forward. In our first story, Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha has assured that Thailand's economy is stabilizing and has called on the private sector to ramp up productivity and confidence in the government sector in order for the economy to move forward. General Prayut spoke during a seminar on sustainable national development, saying economic development rests with a dynamic of trust between the government, the private sector, and the public. The Prime Minister also said the government places great importance on education and human resources development in order to bring unskilled workers and the unemployed into the skilled labor force. He assured that the country's economy is stabilizing and is in the process of expanding its trade volume to foreign markets. The Ministry of Defense has decided to suspend the Navy's planned purchase of submarines and will seek public acceptance before carrying on with the plan. Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister General Prawit Wongsuwan explained the purchase of Chinese submarines would continue, but the Navy must first garner taxpayers' understanding of the usefulness of the vessels. General Prawit also urged the media to help clarify the Navy's intention with the public. The import of Chinese submarines worth 36 billion baht is the initiation of the Royal Thai Navy aimed at bolstering the country's defensive abilities. According to the Defense Minister, the procurement budget will be dispersed gradually in different periods. The payment is likely to take at least 10 years. General Prawit said he would proceed with the purchase plan if all related parties and the public had correct information and comprehension of the Navy's purposes. The Ministry of Finance has said that economic growth will likely shrink further due to sluggish exports. Minister of Finance Somai Pasi said the second half of the year would underperform the first half, pushing this year's economic growth down to 2.6%. He blamed the troubled export sector, which was forecast to suffer a deficit of 1.7% this year. Mr. Somai explained that investments by the public and the private sector expanded 4.2% and 15.3% respectively, but were unable to offset lackluster exports. The government's investments represent no more than 22% of gross domestic product, or GDP, whereas exports account for 74 to 75% of GDP. The government this year has planned to speed up its stimulus plan, particularly the 78 billion baht water management and road construction projects. The government and its contractors have approved 60 to 70% of the project's budget. Disbursement will begin in August. As for next year, the government has given the green light for planned construction of 3 new motorways and a few more subway lines. The Bank of Thailand, or BOT, has indicated a possibility for the drought crisis to keep the Thai economy from expanding beyond at 3% this year. BOT Governor Prasan Trairat-Worakul conceded that the drought problem in Thailand this year is more severe than expected. Due to its direct impact on the agricultural sector, the Thai economic growth is projected to be lower than 3%, while the export growth is likely to see a 1.5% contraction. Mr. Prasan pointed out that in order to drive the economic expansion to 4 to 5%, the government would need to increase the proportion of its investment to GDP from 20% at present to 26%. In regards to the weakening of the baht to its lowest value in 6 years, the central bank chief expressed no concerns over the issue. He explained that the baht depreciation is beneficial for the Thai export sector, and the currencies of both trade competitors and partners are also moving in the same direction. Mr. Prasan also assured that the current economic slowdown is not affecting loan issuance. He said commercial banks' lending is still expanding by 5 to 6%, which is deemed suitable for the current economic growth rate of 3%. The Ministry of Commerce is preparing to begin auctioning off 1.2 million tons of substandard rice from government warehouses late this month. Commerce Minister General Chatchai Sari Kalaya made known that the ministry is currently contemplating on the release of a total of 1.29 million tons of low-quality rice in the government stockpile. He said a committee will be established to plan out the details of the procedure. Initially, the first lot is expected to be put up for bidding late this month. General Chatchai affirmed that the process will be carried out with the utmost transparency. After the auction, a follow-up inspection will also be conducted to ensure that the poor quality rice is used for the right purposes. According to the minister, an agency specialized in rice quality evaluation will first divide the grains into two categories. The ones contaminated with mold are to be offered to the industrial sector for ethanol production, whereas those free of contaminants are to be turned into animal feed. The Ministry of Tourism and Sports is aiming to bring in a 2.5 trillion baht worth of tourism revenue in the next 2 years through the implementation of 3 main strategies. Tourism and Sports Minister Gopkan Wattanawarangoon gave a lecture on the tourism reform strategy for the year 2015 until 2017 at a seminar organized jointly by the Association of Thai Travel Agents, the Thai Hotels Association, the Thai Travel Agents Association, and the Association of Domestic Travel. The minister revealed that 3 tourism promotion strategies are being adopted in the short, medium, and long terms. The first strategy, she said, is the development of the Thai tourism market, which involves many measures, including the promotion of Thailand as a quality leisure destination and the stimulation of traveling in all groups of people. The second strategy is the improvement of Thai tourism products and services with an emphasis on the 12 must-visit cities and 8 border areas. The third is the management of tourism, in which tourism personnel and businesses are to be upgraded, while related laws are to be amended and seriously enforced. All the 3 strategies will be presented to the Cabinet next week for consideration. Ms. Gopkan expressed confidence that this year's tourist target of 28.8 million persons and revenue target of 2.2 trillion baht will be achieved. She also said a target has been set to generate 2.3 trillion baht in 2016 and to boost the figure to 2.5 trillion in 2017. Currently, over 30,000 legal vessels in the 22 seaside provinces are returning to normal operations as the government encourages more boats to follow IUU fishing regulations. Kun Niranut Traichak Wanit brings us the story.
There were more than 80,000 illegal fishing boats in Thai waters, and less than half were registered with the government. The difficulty of tracking and controlling all fishing boats resulted in allegations of human rights violations and destructive fishing methods. Pot Aram Wattananon, Vice Chairman of Board of Trade of Thailand, said the government's efforts against illegal, unreported, and unregulated or IUU fishing will strengthen the international community's confidence in Thailand that there is no human rights violation in Thai fisheries sector.
Something like this, okay, more than 40-50 years, okay, our Thailand have catching too much, overfishing in our sea, okay, in the ocean, and we believe that this kind of thing, what we do, is going to create and rebuild our natural resource for the seafood again, okay, to let our country to get, how to say, wealthy, okay, again on the seafood, okay, which that is will be followed with IUU. So on the meantime, we also can get our problem from the IUU from the Europe. Okay, but please understand that the main target to do it, we want to keep our resource better. I believe that we are going to be greater and greater. I think that this time is we call dead to be born. Okay, it's something like dead to be born. It means that we face up all the bad things until it look like our industry is dead. But in fact, that is a dead to reborn. And the reborn is going to be much better than in the past. Because now, all the fishing boat will be under the law, catching under the law, and we can rebuild our natural resource. Okay, so that is will let our industry more sustainable. Okay, thank you.
The drive against IUU fishing is aimed at developing Thailand's fishing industry in a sustainable manner, while enhancing transparency and combating the use of illegal workers in the sector. As much as 200,000 tons of juvenile fish, which have no commercial value, are caught annually. Once destructive fishing practices have been completely banned, the abundance of commercially viable fish in Thai waters is expected to increase from 1.2 million tons to at least 20 million tons, or about 2 trillion baht worth within a year. I'm Niranutrai Jakwanit reporting.
In other news, the National Reform Council, or NRC Whip, has urged the press to distinguish between personal remarks of the NRC members and official statements by the NRC as a whole. NRC Whip Alongkorn Polabut spoke regarding some NRC members and their proposal for a national government, as well as the claim by some members that the country's two main political parties are currently plotting to overthrow the government. Mr. Alongkorn responded by saying he will hold off the record discussions with NRC members in order to unify the reform body's principles. However, he will not bar members from expressing their opinions, but will only urge them to be mindful of their duty and the possible implications some statements can have towards the NRC's image as a whole. He affirmed that the NRC will respect the opinions of its members even if they entail controversial accusations on the country's political situation. The Constitution Drafting Committee has reached a conclusion for the review of the section of the draft charter related to reform and reconciliation before moving on to deliberate the last section. On day 4 of the mobile meeting in Pattaya of Eastern Chonburi Province, CDC spokesman General Lerdat Ratanawanit said that the charter drafters continued with the deliberation of Part 4 of the draft constitution, which involves the reform and the promotion of reconciliation. General Lerdat said that the meeting resolved to agree that there has to be a committee to be responsible for completing the reform and promoting the reconciliation, and that a Reform and Reconciliation Council will need to be set up. He added that the details of both missions will now be written in the reform section of the draft charter. The chairman of the Constitution Drafting Council has scheduled a date for all charter drafters to cast their votes on the extension of the deadline for the drafting process. CDC Chairman Bawangsak Uwano said on Thursday that the charter drafters will continue making all suggested adjustments to the draft of the new Constitution, which was originally set to be completed within 60 days or July 23rd. However, as it remains uncertain if the process will be wrapped in time, the CDC will convene a session on July 21st for all members to deliberate and cast their votes on the suggested extension of the deadline by 30 days. He insists that such a decision will be based on all reasons which will be heard on that day. Concerning one of the orders issued by the National Council for Peace and Order, which canceled the selection of members of the Law Reform Commission of Thailand, Mr. Bawangsak said that the CDC has not discussed or initiated the issue, while stating that a defamation lawsuit will be filed against anyone who has been or is spreading such a false report on social media. And that's the end of today's edition of Thailand Moves Forward. Before we take a quick break, let's have a look at the exchange rates and commodity prices.
maintain a strong nation, Thailand is promoting 12 core values for the good of the people. The 9th core value, being conscious and mindful of actions in line with His Majesty the King's royal statements.
How could you do that to me? Stop it! Huh? Don't you get it? I don't need you anymore. Enough! We're through. There's someone else in my life.
Say no to the past. Bring your own bag. Say no to plastic.
Physical connectivity, institutional connectivity, and people-to-people connectivity. The power to turn this region into a strong community. Witness the interconnectivity between the 10 Southeast Asian countries in ASEAN Connect via these channels.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. Thailand will host a third meeting of the joint Thai-Vietnamese cabinet retreat on July 23rd, with Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha and his Vietnamese counterpart Nguyen Thanh Dang co-chairing the event. Spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sek Wanatmeti, said the meeting's agenda covers such issues as the extension of Thai-Vietnamese cooperation in the fields of defense, transnational crimes, especially narcotics and human trafficking, trade and investment facilitation, cross-border bus services, coastal shipping for product transfer and tourism, languages, cultural and sport exchanges, as well as provincial-level cooperation between the two countries are also likely to be discussed. At the meeting, the prime ministers of both sides will witness the signing of 5 documents, namely a joint statement of the third joint cabinet retreat, an MOU on employments, an MOU of understanding of labor cooperation, an MOU on the establishment of friendship cities between Thailand's Ubon Ratchathani and Vietnam's Kon Thom, and another MOU between Thailand's Trat and Vietnam's Long An. Elsewhere around the world, 4 Marines were killed on Thursday by a gunman who opened fire at 2 military offices in Chattanooga, Tennessee, before being fatally shot in an attack officials called a brazen, brutal act of domestic terrorism. The FBI named the suspect as Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz, who is 24 years old, but said it was too early to speculate on the motive of the rampage, which comes at a time when U.S. military and law enforcement authorities are increasingly concerned about the threat posed by lone wolves to domestic targets. NBC reported that Abdulaziz was a naturalized American born in Kuwait, and U.S. officials said law enforcement authorities were investigating whether he was inspired by Islamic State or a similar militant group. According to a resume believed to have been posted online by Abdulaziz, he attended high school in Chattanooga suburb and graduated from the University of Tennessee with an engineering degree. The Eurogroup is seeking 7 billion euros of bridge financing for Greece from the European Financial Stability Mechanism for Athens to pay arrears to the International Monetary Fund so that the U.S.-based institution remains involved in the future Greek bailout. So this is according to the body's president on Thursday. Jeroen Dijsselbloem, who is Dutch finance minister, told an emergency session of the Dutch parliament that Greece will have to pay the amount it will receive from the EFSM, a fund of 13.2 billion euros backed by the EU budget. The 7 billion euros will be used to keep Greece afloat and enable it to make a crucial bond payment to the European Central Bank next Monday and pay off its arrears to the International Monetary Fund. Drawing funds from the EFSM requires the consent of all European Union's 28 member states, including the 9 that are not a member of the euro currency area. Greece agreed to painful privatization and fiscal adjustment measures last weekend in exchange for a third European Union bailout for the debt-stricken economy, a week after Greek voters had rejected such a deal in a referendum. Thousands of students protested outside Japan's parliament on Thursday after the lower house approved bills that could see troops sent to fight abroad for the first time since World War II. Organizers said over 20,000 had gathered by about 8 p.m. on Thursday despite threatened rain, and estimated 100,000 took part the day before, with crowds swelling as the evening wore on. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Thursday pushed through Parliament's lower house the controversial security bills despite protests and a risk of further damage to his sagging ratings. A lower house panel approval on Wednesday of the unpopular bills, which would drop a ban on collective self-defense or fighting to defend a friendly country like the United States, has sparked a huge demonstration near Parliament. 2 giant panda twins enjoyed their birthday presents in front of enthusiastic spectators at an Atlanta zoo on Wednesday. Mei-Lun and Mei-Huan turned 2 years old, according to zoo officials. They were each given large gift bags with special treats inside. They're the only surviving giant panda twins born in the U.S. According to the zoo's website, they're also the 4th and 5th offspring of parents Lun-Lun and Yang-Yang. The twin females, who were born just 2 minutes apart, appear to relish their gifts, stuffing their whole heads into the bags. However, the party is not over yet. The zoo has said they'll be treated to ice cakes during the second birthday celebration, which will take place tomorrow on Saturday. Happy birthday. And that's it for today's edition of Newsline. For any comments or suggestions, please feel free to email them to us at newsline.nbt@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. Just simply type in NNT, or check out our website at thainews.prd.go.th/newsing. We are going to say goodbye with footage of robot staff helping out guests in a new hotel in southern Japan. I'm Tra Thiragosan. Have a wonderful day. สวัสดีค่ะ